I noticed a car was coming and I said to myself, oh, I see this car. Let me get out of her way. She still hit me and I fell in the street, went to the hospital. And that's where I realized I'm not happy and I just wanted to be happy. So the accident was the catalyst. 1 year later, I left my job, I left my marriage, and I left the organization all at the same time. I was suicidal at one point and I was going to do it. This little voice on my right ear said, if you do this, you won't know. And I remember turning in the direction of where I heard the voice and I said, I won't know what. I wouldn't know this today.
How can someone identify with their authentic self?
Ask yourself 3 questions. Who am I? Where am I? And
so today we have the beautiful, powerful, and magnetic Debbie Mack. She's a former Jehovah's Witness turned spiritual leader and healer. Debbie is also the founder of Viva Divine, an online platform dedicated to inspiring individuals to aligning more with themselves, with their oneness, and consciously engaging the power of universal laws. Debbie says it best herself. When people ask her, Debbie, what do you do? She replies, I love people. Everything else is a side gig. So welcome, Debbie.
Is that me? Who are you talking about, Aubrey? I'm so happy to be here. I'm excited for our chat today.
I'm super, super excited. You know what? I actually forgot to mention that you will also be officially recognized as a spiritual leader or minister within the unity movement, right? So yes. You're not just spiritually awakened, but you're also pursuing leadership in a respected spiritual organization. And I think that is just so amazing, especially, since women in the JW organization were not allowed this kind of leadership. So very excited to jump into your journey and just unravel this for our audience today. So let's start with, how did it all start? Like, tell us a little bit about your JW background. Were you born in? Were you recruited?
Well, my mother, she got baptized when I was a toddler. So it was pretty much the religion of my childhood. And right around 18, I decided I wanted to explore the world. So I wasn't baptized. So I went out on my own for about 4 years. And then, of course, not having a solid foundation of how to navigate the world, I came back in at around 21, got baptized, dedicated my whole life to it. And between 21 and in my early 40s, I was progressively getting more and more depressed, didn't really know what was the cause of it. And I left around, I would say, early 40s, and I was done. Grateful for the experience, but completely done with it. So that's a synopsis. And then we can get into the nitty gritty of, the little things that happened along the way. But that's pretty the overview of how I was a witness for 40 something years.
It sounds like you left at a young age in your early 20s, and then you came back.
Yes, more around my late teens.
Late teens, okay.
Yeah, I wanted to get into fashion. I wanted to be a model. And it was really funny because I never had that inclination as a teenager. I'm short, so what am I thinking? And I didn't think I was all that cute either. So, I wanted to be a model. And so I told my mom, and my mom is so funny. She just said, okay. And she called an elder over. And he, listened to what I wanted to do. And he said, well, you can't serve Jehovah and be a model. And I thought, okay, well, I guess I won't serve Jehovah then. And my mom was like, what? And so, she said, well, if you're not going to go to the Kingdom Hall and you're not going to do this and you can't live at home. And I said, okay, I'll move out. And she was just kind of like, I don't know what to do with this child, but she never interfered. She actually helped me move into my first apartment when I was 18. And she just, I guess, prayed about it and let me have my, real world discovery.
Wow.
And yeah, so I got to model. I got to get into a little bit of entertainment. I did some TV commercials and, a lot of fun stuff that was, I think, just part of my inherent talent as someone who likes to be in front of a camera or on a stage. And it was a lot of fun, but not having that foundation, of how to navigate the real world, Aubrey, it leaves you at a disadvantage if you're a witness all your childhood and you go out into the world. So, of course, I lost all my jobs because I had 3 or 4 jobs at a time. I lost all my jobs and I came back home and my mom was happy. And I said, Armageddon is coming. The world is crazy. It's a great tribulation. I need to be a Jehovah's Witness. This is it for me. So I came back in and I studied. And I remember telling the 2 sisters, and I love them so much. I still remember them to this day. I told them, that if I ever find a hole in this, I'm out. And they said, just give your study 30 days.
Mhm.
And somehow I ended up getting baptized.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
The reason why you came back was because community and learning how to navigate the world. So I'm just wondering, coming back to the Jehovah's Witness organization, did you end up finding it?
Well, I think for me, coming back into the organization was an effort to feel safe,
Okay.
right? Because the world looks like a very chaotic, unsafe space for those of us who have been indoctrinated all our lives. And, we don't have a skill set to navigate the ups and the downs and the twists and the turns of life. People in the world are like, oh, you lost your job, get another one. And I'm like, but this is devastating. So for me, coming back into the organization was an effort to feel grounded, safe. It was predictable in the organization. I knew what to expect. I knew the people I would be around. Yeah, I just wanted to feel like I was not being tossed around back and forth, and getting beat up by the world. And so the organization, it feels like that. It's so enclosed and, this little buffer against the world. You don't feel all the stuff on the outside if
That's
you
so
really
true.
are in it, right?
And you have the people like supporting you,
Yes,
the brothers and sisters.
yes, yes,
It's the safety net.
yes. And there's this idea when you come back, see, we told you it was really, bad outside. This is where you should be. This is your safe space. This is where Jehovah is. This is where you'll survive the things that are happening in the world if you stay here. So that felt like the contrast I could live with. And it felt good for about maybe the first 10 years. I would say it felt really good and it felt sure to be in the organization again.
I love when you mentioned predictability, and the organization is so predictable that I think that does add another layer of safety. And as humans, we desire safety. So this conversation that you had with the sisters, if you find a hole, right, in this, obviously eventually you did find a hole.
I found
So
some cheese.
so what was the turning point that started to make you question and then officially decide to leave?
So I would say, looking back now, one of the things that I realized is when I left the organization and went out into the world, my critical thinking skills expanded. I also worked in an environment in aviation where you have to use your mind to assess and adapt really quickly. And so you're always paying attention. So I would say the first 10 years of the organization, I was the perfect JW, sister. I was in service. I wanted to pioneer. That's a whole other story. I wanted to, I was going to my meetings. I was deep into it. At the same time, I was noticing things that didn't add up. I was noticing changes that didn't make sense, along with the awareness that I couldn't really question them. And so that just kept turning over in my mind. There were times in the meetings when I would hear something, Aubrey, and I would just internally say, how do we know that's true? So my critical thinking skills, and I didn't have terminology for it then, had already expanded. So I'm now in this environment where I have expanded beyond it in my late teens, early 20s. And then I come back into it and it's so narrow that my mind felt like it was being squeezed this. It was like this all the time. And what that created for me was the physiological dysfunction with the brain activity, which also exacerbated the experience of being depressed. So I would say from year 10, onward, I was progressively getting depressed because I was squashing down the natural ability for the mind to learn and expand. And it was very limited in the organization. You can't read anything outside of it. You have to stay within the parameters. But my locus of growth and evolution and exploration was always pushing against what they call your embedded belief system. I was curious beyond it, but I couldn't expand beyond it. And so that expression of collapse, expand in my mind and in my brain was causing deep progressive depression. I was actually diagnosed with a condition called dysthymia, which is a depression that is a constant state of melancholy. And that's because I wasn't being true to myself. Wow. I wasn't learning, I wasn't growing, right? So for, I'd say, a long time, I dealt with a lot of depression, medication, secretly going to therapy, trying to figure out what's wrong. Yeah. It was a very challenging time, and not really recognizing that it was the limitations in the organization that was keeping me in that state. I thought maybe it was me, right? Maybe it was because I'm not a good JW, like I don't study all the time, right? Or I might miss a meeting. So that guilt and that shame, I thought that that was causing my depression, and my marriage was hard. And I thought all of that, but I never contributed it to the limitation of the thoughts, the thought expansion within the organization itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's a long way of saying something, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ooh, let me just digest.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there are a lot of people in the organization that are having that issue, and they don't realize that your mind naturally, on its own, wants to expand and explore. And when you're in this regimented, small level of learning, it's just very localized. Your mind is always pushing, and that can result in depression, that can result in autoimmune disease. There are a lot of different things that people in the organization, there's some people are really stressed out. They don't realize that's because their environment is too rigid, and it is preventing their growth.
Yeah, I think you mentioned one time that your depression was so severe that it actually led to you getting into a car accident or jaywalking.
Yeah, so that's what started, I would say, my awakening. So one of the things that I would do to offset my depression is I would go shopping. And so I was going to the mall one day, and I parked across the street, which I normally never did, but I parked across the street, and I was walking across the main thoroughfare, and I noticed a car was coming at a very high rate of speed. And I said to myself, oh, I see this car, let me get out of her way. And somehow, even though I was walking faster, she still hit me. She clipped me on my leg, and I fell in the street, went to the hospital, wasn't seriously hurt. But that accident, when I was recuperating, was the time I actually had a chance to just kind of sit and assess my life. And that's where I realized I am not happy. And I just wanted to be happy. I just wanted to, there are things in my life at that point I hadn't really done that I really wanted to do. And so I just said out loud, I said, I don't know what happiness is. I couldn't remember what that felt like to be just free. And I said, I don't know what that is, but that's what I want. And however it unfolds, I'll just accept that. Yeah. So the accident was the catalyst. 1 year later, my life appeared to be falling apart. So I think the accident happened in February of 2010. By February of 2011, my job started getting wonky. And that put me in a position to kind of start looking beyond aviation to see what I could do with the skill set I had developed there. And so I started looking for work. And by, I would say, 6 months into 2011, I left my job, I left my marriage, and I left the organization all at the same time. One big swoop. And I stepped into this new space that I had no context for, but I knew that it was going to be different than where I had come from as a witness. So I just stepped out, and I never looked back. And I got shunned like a lot of witnesses do. My family, they all freak out. And my family is probably one of the most amazing group of human beings, and they are witnesses. And I realized that they are going to do this thing, not speak to me, be afraid of me, think I'm an apostate, mainly because it's what we've all been taught to think about people when they leave. But I know that my family they love me, and I love them. So I mourned the initial experience of the realization, oh, they're really going to do this. They are not going to talk to me. And I just said, okay, this is just who they are as witnesses. That's their witness mind. It's not going to change how I feel about them. I love them. I will give them their space, but I'm going to live my life authentically, because I could not be that kind of person to have one foot in the organization and one foot out. It's either all the way in or all the way out. And so I just made that step out. It's just that, I love y'all, but I'm going to be doing this, and stepped into a whole new life that has been building upon itself over the last 14 years or so. Not one single regret. In that time frame, my mother never shunned me because she raised me to be a thinker. So that was kind of funny. She just said, please don't do anything crazy until I die. So I think I've kind of held that vision for her, although I do know she, over the years, realized that my reason for leaving was very valid, very reasonable. It made sense. And I did talk to her once about it, and she just kind of had a light bulb go off in her mind. And she just looked at me and she said, yeah, let's never talk about this again. But she understood why I left because it made sense, and that she raised me to be a thinker. And so, in being a thinker, she knew that whatever her child was doing beyond the organization was going to be okay. And she saw me living my life. She saw me healthy, whole, normal, not doing anything, crazy. So she kind of, towards the end of her life, because she passed away in 22, she was okay with the choices I'd made. And I respected her choice to be a witness. All my family, I have never tried to convince them otherwise. This is their life. This is their decision. Everyone has their own path. And I respect theirs and they respect mine.
So there was never a moment where you wanted to wake up your loved ones?
No, absolutely not. Mm-mm. One thing about trying to wake up people in the organization, that usually comes from indoctrinated thinking. And I think sometimes some, in the exJW community don't realize when we try to wake people up, it's the same thing as trying to wake up a worldly person, right? And for me, internally, I didn't have any desire, excuse me, to shift them. There was no selfish need for me to have them with me. I knew they were always going to be there, even if we have different ideologies or thinking. They're still my family. Nothing has changed. But I just never felt the urge to try to convince them otherwise because they needed to be there. I didn't. And so I respect their choices. And I think that has had a huge effect on how I interact with my family today. We may not hang out all the time, but they are accessible. There have been instances where I've spent time with them. It's not really like they are afraid of me or feel like I'm a threat. We just have different lives, but we still love each other. I still communicate with them. Nothing has really changed in my heart. And I have no axe to grind with my family. They are just choosing the belief system that they have, and that's fine.
So I love the parallels that you just made between how witnesses, we want to wake up worldly people, right? And now that we're out, sometimes exJWs have this tendency and urgency to want to wake up their loved ones in the JW organization. A similar type of indoctrination, I think, is the fear mongering that we see that the end is near. For us, we grew up hearing the end is near. Now, how do you think that affects an exJW's thinking when they're trying to process these political fear mongering? We don't have to get into the politics, but just something similar. Now that you are coming from a more conscious place, not a controlled place, and I'm just trying to bring up the similarities and parallels of a mindset of, that urgency mindset, of the fear mongering mindset that we can carry on even when we're out of the organization. You want me to repeat that question?
No, I heard you very clearly. And it's a very good and important question. How I see it is that, growing up in the organization, that's a rhetoric that we've heard all the time. And we are trained to see these experiences in the world as markers to match this idea that the world is ending, the Great Tribulation is starting, and Armageddon is near. And then there's paradise, there's a rescue at the end, right? When I stepped out the organization, I actually stepped out kind of fearlessly because for me, I wasn't concerned about a pink fireball coming from my forehead if Armageddon was real, because I didn't want to live a lie for myself. I wanted to live my authentic life. So I wasn't concerned about dying if Armageddon was true. The beautiful thing about leaving the organization is you have more access to information. And this also ties into my ministerial education and being exposed to religious history without limiting ideas or translation. Okay. So as I started to study, I started to notice that a lot of these ideas about the end is coming, the last days, this great tribulation, are really an eschatological, it's a term in the early Christian church under Rome and beyond, where they came up with this idea that they could use a time frame that's biblical, okay, following, time frame that's biblical, and assign it to current time events, where in truth, they do not have anything to do with each other. Okay. So I started to study, and this is like academic level, theological level studies where you have to research and write papers. So you're not just kind of like getting someone's idea, you're looking at the historical introduction of the idea of something like futurism. Futurism is actually a church doctrine created by priests to connect history in the Bible to current times. And so that continues to create this fear when that incident in history happened and it's done. So once I was able to make that connection and realize life is just happening, humanity is just evolving, right? We have this sea that is always turning, right? And we can look at it and we can just say something is happening, but it doesn't mean it's the end of the world. And so education is something in the organization that is not encouraged. And it's for this very reason, because you will come into that academic, historical, archaeological, you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Don't edit this out. Okay, just keep it, girl. Just to keep it real. But all of that stuff with the Great Tribulation, all of that stuff with Armageddon, Revelation, when you read Revelation with the context of the time frame it was happening and the symbolism with it, it doesn't apply to now. And it never will apply to now, ever. Nations will come and go. That's just how humanity operates, but it is not tied to scripture. And that's my TED Talk. Thank you for coming.
I love it because I got two things. That one, that when we allow ourselves to do the research, right, we can learn how to break down the paralysis that the organization has put on us, right? And then we can really decide, is this real fear or is this conditioned fear?
Right. It's conditioned fear.
Yes. And something I learned from you, or about you, from that TED Talk is that that when you were probably sitting at the Kingdom Hall and you were feeling that cognitive dissonance because you had this natural desire to just expand and to learn. But in the Kingdom Hall, you're basically just given these templates.
Yes.
These repetitiveness. And you just had this desire to just, I want to learn more.
Yes. Well, that's my byline. I love people. That's my job. I'm curious about people. So even not only with just like prophecy, the way we learned it, but even the organizational idea of other religions, how they were presented, that Mankind Search for God book, that woke me up a little bit too, because I wanted to sit with people who, were Hindus or were Buddhists, the Taoists. I wanted to actually like ask them, well, what do you believe? Like, why do you believe this? Versus someone telling me their own idea of who these people were, right? And so leaving the organization, I got a chance to do all that. I got to sit in those spaces. I got to sit in a Buddhist temple. I got to go to Catholic church. And I'm not trying to find the truth. I'm just trying to have life experience. I just want to connect with people and get to know them and who they are, and not have to judge that what they believe is wrong. It's just different. It's a cultural thing. So the organization actually helped me to realize I needed to like not be afraid to look beyond it. Like get over the fear of looking at something outside of it. And I didn't look at apostate stuff because that was never my thing. I wanted to know about the world. I wanted to try and understand, why am I really here? Because there were certain things that we learn in the religion that never made sense to me. And so leaving, I got to do that. And that's one thing, when I come across other exJWs, I really try and encourage them, like, just start reading about the world, right? Start observing your environment without judgment, right? You may not know everything, but all the information is there. And all it really comes down to is whether or not it resonates with you inside. And if it doesn't, you can gently release it. You don't have to judge it. What's for you, you will know because you will feel it. Yeah. So the cognitive dissonance was really growing for me in the organization. But that is, I think, a wake-up antidote if we just learn to trust. And I will add that for me, when they say in the organization to have a really deep relationship with Jehovah, I was actually really doing that. I was having internal conversations with Jehovah God. And what I was feeling in here and what I was hearing organizationally didn't jive.
There was
So
a misalignment.
yes, there was a huge misalignment. And I knew that I couldn't speak up to it because, of course, it would frighten people. And then, you get labeled incorrectly. And so I just kind of kept quiet. So I was really paying attention to organizational information versus this relationship that I was having that really never changed when I left. That's something a lot of people think when you leave the organization, you lose sense of connection to whatever it is you were calling God. You really don't. You actually, for me, you have a deeper experience that becomes richer.
I agree
Right.
with you.
So yeah, so it's to me, it's just kind of like I really try and encourage extra JWs when I come across them. Just read, just be curious, right? Look beyond the Bible, look at the history of Christianity. If you're Black, look at the history of your family's belief systems because there's a lot of hints in there about your inherent spirituality, which is different than religion.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess what I'm gathering from you is one way you can start discovering yourself is looking at information about your history.
Yes. And even before that, I think we all inherently have something within us that we're curious about.
Yes.
And I think if we follow what we're curious about, that's like the first opening to other things. As you look at them, you'll feel less fear.
Yes.
Right. And then back to the family stuff. So my family, before they were witnesses, they were actually part of the Church of England. They were Anglican. And so I started looking at the lineage in our family. And I said, okay, so the reason why they were Christian before J-Dubs is really because of colonialism and slavery conversion, right? Because my family's history is slavery, West African heritage. And so I said, oh, so what were they before they were converted, in the colonial environment? Well, they were probably Muslim, right? Right. They were probably West Africa had a lot of Muslim conversion during the time of the transatlantic slave trade and before. And so I looked at Islam. It didn't really resonate with me. And so because I knew that was also a conversion, I said, well, what was before the conversion? And that's when I came into animism. And animism, just like the basic definition of it, is that those people in that particular part of Africa, they believe that every single thing you see has spirit in it, including you. And that energy, that spirit that's in everything, it's all connected. When people say we are one, that's what it means. So animism, that's a basic definition of it. When I got to that, I said, that feels right.
That resonated.
That resonated. It's like, okay, so I am connected to everything. I am not separate foundationally from you, Aubrey, right? You just look different, right? Yeah. But the thing that's animating your body and animating mine is the same thing. That's life. That's spirit. And then I have lots of plants, as you can see, all around me. The same thing that's foundationally true about plants is spirit. They're just presenting itself differently. So when I started to sit with that and I started to meditate on that, I, over time, began to experience oneness with everybody. And that's a beautiful feeling, to feel a connection to people either right in your space here or somewhere else in the world, right? That fundamental love that is there that we're all born with, that spirit, that's in every single person. And so for me, once I got to that point of personal research, personal contemplation, I could let go of everything else that came after that. I could let go of the possibility my ancestors were Muslim, doesn't resonate. I could see clearly colonialism, conversion to Christianity. I could see the Jehovah's Witnesses and that's an offset of Christianity. And that's when I knew I didn't need it.
Describe that oneness and feeling versus the brotherly love that the JWs promote or say they have. This brotherly love versus actual oneness with everyone. Like, is there a real difference in feeling in that experience?
Yes and no. I would say the unity that you experience within an organization is mostly because of group thought, right? Everybody's thinking the same ideas for the most part, and they're being led by that. So that's how that unity shows up. Whereas oneness would be people in the organization being able to express who they are with a fundamental awareness that they're all connected to the same thing.
It sounds like one world, the organization world, it's united through, like you said, group thought. So it's united through indoctrination, not
indoctrination and fear.
And fear. Whereas the world that you're speaking of, the oneness, is this type of spirituality is you can show up as yourself. So it's authenticity.
Authenticity, non-judgment. You are loved and accepted for who you are because we know who you are.
Oof.
Inside of this body, we know who we are. And because we are focusing on that, we can also see the things where that don't represent who you are, but still not judge you for that. Still not hold it against you if you're not in the full awareness of what you are. Yeah.
Did you join other religions or dabble into other? No. Why not?
When I left the organization, I went straight into, I don't know what this is, the world. I don't know what this is. I don't understand anything. Literally, I just said, I'm just going to stop trying to figure things out. And I said, okay, I'm going to be an atheist in my head, right? I came into this world. I didn't believe anything. It was all told to me. So let's go back to that part. And I sat with that for a while. I don't believe in God, right? Then I was like, well, how am I here? Like, how? Yeah, I know biologically, but when people die, that energy in their body, where does that go? Obviously, it comes in, it stays here, then it goes. So there's something.
Wait, you didn't believe that it just goes to sleep?
No.
Okay.
When I'm telling you, I was a JW sitting in the meeting like this. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any sense. Because we take a breath in, we become animated, we stay animated. When the breath goes out, we're not animated. So there's that thing that's happening. Where does that come from? Where is that air? What is the air? I said, what is the air? Because if we don't breathe it, we don't move, right? So that thing, what is that? And so I said, okay, so maybe I'm agnostic, right? And I sat with that for a while. And then I found a community that did group meditation. And since I was on that path already, I started going to this campus, Unity campus, just for the meditation. I was never interested in the church at all. And then one Sunday, I accidentally got there too early. And I said, well, I'm early. Let me just sit, in their sanctuary, whatever. I'm not really going to listen. And I heard that minister, his name is Reverend Howard Caesar. I heard him speak of Jesus, God, Buddha, universe, and something else all in one sentence. And at that time, my ears were already kind of open to metaphysics because I was curious about what is metaphysics? I want to learn. And I realized what they were talking about resonated with what I had been surmising for about 3 or 4 years. And they offered classes, and I took a metaphysics class, and I said, this is what I feel. This makes sense. I can navigate life with this kind of thought system because it feels like it's more powerful, more meaningful, and healthier for my mind. So, and it's spirituality. Religion is more about control and doctrine, where spirituality is more about discovery of self, right? Self-actualization, self-realization from spirituality. Ask yourself 3 questions. Who am I? Where am I? What do I want? Who am I? Where am I? What do I want? If people were to ask themselves that, I think it's almost like the world would just open up and they can like, wow, there are answers here, right? Maybe religion doesn't have all the answers. Maybe they have a foundational answer of love, because all religions are trying to connect to something greater than themselves. The people that follow it, they're trying to connect to something. Spirituality just takes away the dogma and the doctrine and gives you the tools to actually get to that space of, oh, I know who I am now.
Can I actually go back to one of your questions out of the 3 questions? Actually, it's the who am I? The who am I, right? So when you leave, the religious cult, and I say, who am I will still have the tendency to say I'm a Jehovah's Witness. Or I'm an inactive Jehovah's Witness. So again, I'm still associating myself with that identity. So how can someone start to break free from that identity, that group thought, and slowly start identifying with their authentic self?
Make me take a deep breath on that one, because that's such a powerful question, because I know a lot of people struggle with that. Especially if you're born in, from the moment you come out the womb, you've been impressed with this idea about your identity, right? You are a Jehovah's Witness child, and then you have protocols. Like there's certain things you can't do in school. So you have this buildup of this idea of who you are. And then I would say your real self starts to like emerge, right? Because it can only take so much submersion on top of it. That's not it, because it's actually rubbing against your true self. So when you first leave, it's natural, I think, to say, I used to be a Jehovah's Witness, or I'm an exJW, or I'm proud apostate. Those are still words that are associated to an identity that is not who you are. And if you want to discover who you are, you have to be willing to lay that aside. You have to be willing to refrain from using those labels to identify yourself. You have to. Because the more you identify with something in your past that is not who you are, it stays in your present. Number one, and I say this with love to all exJWs, stop using that word. If you want, you can use a word like former, because it puts it in its proper space, right? I used to do that. Now I'm just me. You may not know who you are yet. So one thing I will invite people to do is contemplate this. Look at yourself from the moment you came out of the womb and you're being held in your mother's arms, and you don't know, and this baby knows nothing, has no concept of the word Jehovah's Witness or even its name. Okay. Look at that child in your mind as much as you can quietly and just contemplate and look at that and say, who am I? Who is that? If I didn't have this identity that was built up for me, right, that I've lived from, who is this? What do they want? What life were they going to have if they never had that identity? And that to me kind of unlocks these little things in our minds that give us an opportunity to explore or discover who we really are and what innate talents we have and abilities, right? So you have to kind of go back. And I know it's hard for people to go back because there's trauma, right? There's trauma to work through, because not only are you religiously dealing with trauma, you're also probably dealing with family trauma that goes back generations. Our parents did not become witnesses just because. There was something running in their minds that made them choose something that they thought would keep them safe or save them from a world that they didn't understand, right? So if you're willing to do the work, and it's not easy work, but it is rewarding, you can undo a lot of that and get back to that innocent state of, okay, so who am I? You may discover you're still that innocent state. You haven't grown up. You're still that kid. You're just in a bigger body, right? What would that kid want now if he didn't have the identification of a Jehovah's Witness? So I think that's one way, but you need help. You have to have support in working through the traumas and all of that to get to that point. And I am very happy to see more exJWs are willing to do that, because you want to know who you are. You want to know, what you could do now, even if you've never done it when you were a child. Don't let what they did to you keep you back, right? You want to know what it feels like to be joyful, to not be sad about how your family is, choosing this idea that keeps them separate from you, right? I know people want that. I know people want connection, but connection starts with your work, not with them changing. Yeah. So do the work. Yeah, do the work. Those of us who've done the work, man, we're out here cutting up.
I appreciate so much what you said about uncovering the trauma piece and kind of understanding, why there had to be a reason why your family joined or was recruited. There was some kind of vulnerability there. And I feel like once we have that insight, we can actually, when we leave, it can actually lessen our trauma. It can lessen the anger, and it can actually, we can actually have more compassion for people that are in.
Yes. Aubrey, that is a very powerful awareness, because I know in the distraught experience of leaving and the families, it looks like you're falling apart and they're not talking to you, and it's just, oh, those family members that you're talking to, they were babies too. And something happened in between the baby to the adult, right? That made a decision to be part of this religion that you may not have all the information about. And if we don't know our family's history, our family's trauma history, all we're seeing is the symptom of it as our families being Jehovah's Witnesses and fighting us back when we are normalizing. We don't know because we don't communicate. That's a lot of the issue we have just in the world in general, but in the organization, we don't talk about our pain.
In the organization.
No, you do not talk about your pain. Be joyful in Jehovah, and I'm not trying to be funny, but that's really what it is. We don't talk about what happened to us, what brought us where we are. We don't talk about it. How would you talk about it? You wouldn't know that there's something driving you until you actually start waking up.
That's very true. I had to start asking myself reflective questions, like what happened, because I was in it for 20 years. So I had to go back even far back to like kindergarten. How was I when I was a kid? What vulnerabilities did I have? I mean, I was born in the Philippines and traveled here, but there's even trauma in assimilating with a different country for a very young person and not being able to speak English very well. So not being able to have friends. So having a JW community was loving.
You felt like you belonged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's okay. I think you can show yourself self-compassion that way, that it's okay. So what would you say? Because it sounds like you have found a lot of some beneficial things from the organization. You seem to have a very healthy perspective and relationship with that past. For others who can't seem to find anything, right, beneficial from their JW experience, how can they start pivoting to a more healthier perspective?
I would honestly encourage people who are in that position to be, first of all, very gentle on themselves. And I know it's hard sometimes, but therapy. If you can find a therapist, one who deals with religious programming is good. But if you can also find a therapist who works with, like, they call them child parts, because your adult life, you're presenting these feelings and they're really child parts. And a lot of those child parts are going to be tied to the religious experience. They can help you work through certain levels of it, right? It doesn't happen overnight. Your JW experience drives your exJW experience, and it drives how you show up beyond it, right? And some people really, really, really have a lot of painful family trauma that is sitting underneath the religious stuff. And so if you can first be willing to look at the religious stuff and ask questions, dig, whatever it is, that thread that shows up in your mind religiously that you want to pull, start pulling that one, and just let the thread lead you to the other one so it can just gently fall aside. Then you can start looking at your family trauma, because once you get the religious part, you kind of see why your family is show up the way they do. But then you want to get down to that trauma, and there are levels of trauma. There are all kinds of trauma. And if you can find a therapist who is willing to work with you on that, and when you go into therapy, go in with the intention that you are already healed from it. You're just in the process of doing it. Because I think sometimes what I see with exJW sometimes is that they'll go into therapy thinking if they just talk about what happened, that they'll be free of it. No. You have to actively do something to undo the programming in your mind, because that's what it is. It's a mind virus. Rewire your mind in order that you can see clearly and know how to move through life. If you're just going to therapy and you're just talking and you say, my therapist is not helping me, it's because you probably should go in with the intention to do undoing work. You have to be intentional about it. It's not going to go away just by talking about it, because you spent 40 years, like you were for 20 years, spent 20 years thinking a certain way. Your brain needs to go a different way in order for your life to look different. Yeah. So you have to do the work. And it might seem like that work doesn't do anything, like rewiring your thinking, watching what you say. There are tons of ways to reprogram your mind. You may think it doesn't work, but it does.
And when you do that, you can have a healthier perspective with that past, right?
Yes.
You can start looking at things differently, and instead of out of anger, you can look at it with more peace.
You didn't become a Jehovah's Witness just because you were born into it. From some people are, right?
Yeah.
And then you re-anchored that experience from childhood by repeatedly saying, I am one of Jehovah's Witnesses. Everywhere you went, you said that.
It reinforced it.
You reinforced it.
The identity and
all the time. So you have to reinforce something else in order to break free of that identity. Okay, so an example I would say, when I left, I just dropped it. It was like, I'm not that anymore. I don't even
you didn't even say the truth.
No.
Okay. Because that is a habit. This is the truth. Okay.
No, organization. That's it, right? For me, it was like constantly telling my mind things like, I'm amazing. I am capable. I am Debbie. I am who I am, right? What do I like to do? Who am I? I am trying to remind myself who I am and not the identity, right? I'm a loving, kind, funny, quirky, obnoxious human being.
Characteristics, not
Right.
the group identity. Okay.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's who I am.
Not the labels, not, you can't say I am an apostate or
Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
It has to be more forward
Mhm.
labels about yourself
Yeah.
or yeah.
Even if you don't feel like you are like amazing, even if you don't feel like you're kind or I'm at peace, those are part of your true nature. Peace, joy, happiness, right? Those are all part of who you are inherently. So even if you
Yes.
don't feel them, if you just kind of like re-anchor into those over time, you are going to feel more peaceful. If you want to feel peaceful, you have to keep telling yourself,
Yeah.
right? You want to be a Jehovah's Witness, you're going to keep telling yourself that. You want to be
Yeah.
something else? You want to be a millionaire? Just keep telling yourself you're a millionaire.
Yeah.
But you got to start believing it.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to start acting like, what would a millionaire do with money? That's how you rewire your thinking.
Can you think of a belief that you had to let go of in order to start living more authentically and thriving? Is there a belief?
Yes, I believe that I wasn't capable. I believe that I wasn't capable to step into the things I'm doing now. I didn't have.
So hard to believe.
I know. I didn't.
So hard to believe.
I didn't. I really, it's like, I can't do that. Like, I can't really be a minister. No one's going to listen to me. I don't know what I'm talking about, right? That's a belief that's tied to the idea that women shouldn't teach.
Oh, wow.
Oh yeah.
So that was ingrained.
That was in there
Oof.
still.
Wow.
That was an embedded belief that I had to get over, that this is wrong, that I'm going to get in trouble, that they're going to find me, and then they're going to discipline me. And I'm like, why would they do that? That's like that little, I call it my little ego voice that would just say things, and it was always linked to that. So I would counteract that by saying, this is always who I was going to be. I was always going to be comfortable in front of large crowds, encouraging people, helping them live amazing, beautiful, expansive lives, right? Because even when I didn't think about doing stuff like that, I did that for work.
But do you believe that your professional career and what you're doing now aligns more with who you are?
Yes.
Oh,
It's the easiest thing I've ever done.
Wow.
I will say I never left with the vision that I would be, a minister, an ordained minister. That is not something that was ever in my awareness. It was actually brought to me by the people, the community that I'm part of, because when I came across these kinds of expansive thinking, I realized, oh, these will work, right? Because it's really about rewiring my thinking. How my thinking about myself reflects what I see in the world. And my ideas about, lack and abundance and self-love and all those things, if I change my mind, then I'll have a different life experience. And so I went deep into that and had such a pretty rapid transformation in that community, where they started whispering in my ear, like, you're a minister. And I said, absolutely not. No, I'm not. I'm not going to do that. I will teach the concepts because, that's what I do, learning and development. I love a whiteboard and I like breaking things down for people. But Arby, they kept saying it to me. And one day I was approached by our senior minister, and he just was like, I just want to say, and I said, yes. I don't even know where that came from. It just came out of my mouth. And I'm like, what is happening? What did I just agree to? But when I stepped into ministerial school and started the work, which I'm still doing, there was like this sense of this is what I'm here for. Plus, it plays into the thing I never got to do as a child when I was in the organization, which is theater and drama.
Ooh.
So I get to create experiences for people, in speaking and teaching that are live and animative and fun about concepts that actually really do help people live good lives now. It's not light-hearted work at all, but it's very rewarding. I will tell you that. So as a woman, as a Black woman, leaving an organization like Jehovah's Witnesses and, being the first in my family to do this, I know if they ever see this video, they're going to be like, what? Because I've never talked about this, Aubrey. This is like the first time. I feel like it's an accomplishment to leave an organization like where we came from that is very anchored in patriarchy and women are supposed to teach, whereas women do have a lot of intuitive ability. They can feel things, they feel what's needed, they can call certain things in, speak to certain things. To be in an environment where they encourage women to step into that position because they trust them, they know that they can do the job, is such an amazing thing to be a part of. So, like I promised my mom I wouldn't do anything crazy until she left. Hi, Mom, I'm doing it. It's a joy. It's a real joy. And I love it.
Yeah.
I love helping people discover how amazing they really are.
And you're just glowing. I don't know. Like it's like I can't even imagine like JW Deb.
Very repressed.
Yeah.
Very repressed. Very, yeah. But I was the person that when I did have a part on, the service, the theocratic ministry school, I would do all kinds of really innovative, crazy stuff. Yeah, because it was so bland and dry. I wanted to do things differently, and I wouldn't have any desire to be a woman in that organization. Even if they were to allow women, I wouldn't do it. It would still be too limited.
Yeah.
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 A woman giving a part on at a circuit assembly, giving a circuit assembly talk would still be in the patriarchal environment giving a talk. She would still be limited.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I'm not limited here at all.
It's just very playful for you. I
Yes.
love that.
Yes.
So we just have some closing questions.
Okay.
What do you want people to know about leaving and starting over? Especially if, people have the fear of the consequences or the what ifs, and it's not stable out there in the world. It's so secure here.
Well, I would say for a young person who still lives at home, and I don't want to give advice, right? Because your parents are your caregivers. You are a responsibility that you are their responsibility, right? They do have this idea how they want you to live your life. So if I were talking to a young person in an organization that is waking up, I would say a good thing is to start reminding your parents that at one point they were young, they didn't grow up in the organization, they weren't born knowing this, and that you want to explore, right? You want to be given a chance to explore, and you still do the JW stuff because you still live at home. You've got to be able to be balanced with that, right? Okay. But you want to start talking to your parents at the level of their own awareness of, you know what, it's normal for children to grow and do their thing, right? Even in tiny things. You just got to play it a little bit differently because you're still living at home. For people who are now coming out, who are adults, the one thing that I said based on my experiences is to remember it's a belief system, okay? And it's a religion. It is natural for people to leave their religion all the time. It is not something new. It's not something that's abnormal. It is a normal thing. I will say the way you leave the organization will determine how you navigate life outside of it and how the leadership body will deal with you. Okay? Because if you are leaving under the experience of, oh my God, it's wrong, I need to talk to the elder body, if you're agitating their indoctrination, they're naturally going to fight back. They're naturally going to want to discipline or punish or talk to you. However, if you as an adult come to the awareness of, this is not for me, Thank you very much. Please honor my decision to live my adult life without interference. I will leave you alone. Start living your life.
Powerful.
Go to therapy, get support, and just spend time discovering what it is you want to experience in life. I mean, you might want to go out there and have a great time, or you might just want to be quiet. But know that there is a transition moment, but you have to have support when you leave.
Support.
Yes, I think a lot of people...
Balance and support. That's what I'm hearing.
I think a lot of people feel the urge to speak up, and I get that. But what that does, it puts you in their spotlight. And once you're in that spotlight, it's hard to get out. They'll start coming for you. And that's part of the indoctrination. And they don't know they're indoctrinated, right? They don't know what they're operating on half the time. So if you trigger it, you'll have, I think, a harsher time leaving. I just said, thank you for a nice time. This is not for me. I'm out, and leave me alone. I'm not going to bother you. You're not going to bother me. I'm just going to go live my life. And that was it. They were done.
Sometimes it could just be that.
It could be that simple. And they still see me.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, how you doing? It just wasn't for me. I've outgrown it. That's normal.
Yeah, people just need to understand that it is just a belief system.
Yes.
How your family reacts to it, whether they shun you or not, it's really up to them. Preparing yourself mentally and emotionally is huge, but that's why getting that support while you're in, I think, is important.
If you start to wake up, don't start going to therapy.
Yeah.
Start going the moment you start to have awareness about, I think I'm going to leave this. Start going to therapy, start working on an exit route, and also how to navigate having those conversations when you actually do leave.
It's really tough. Yeah, really tough. Because there's a lot of people I know that is the risk of not seeing their relatives, their friends, and people that you have so much history with.
Yes.
And then it's rebuilding, and then it's just navigating. It is, but I think it's just understanding that part of the Jehovah's Witness belief system is that is just how it's designed. It's designed to keep you in.
Yes. It's designed to keep you in, and it's designed that when you leave it, for you to not be able to function properly.
That's why people go back.
They go back, and also that thought form is still stuck back there. You got to work on getting it out. Right? So there's a lot of people, sometimes they've been gone for 40 years, but they're still back at that shunning experience.
They're still operating like a witness, even though they're out.
Yes. And they don't understand when other people are not, right? They're thinking, well, it's, you didn't have that, but yes, I did. I just was willing and ready to move past it so much because I didn't want that to run my life. It's so insidious sometimes, but I don't even think people realize how insidious it is until your mind is completely free of it. Yeah. But if you're going to leave now in this time frame, in this generational time, you want to start going to therapy while you're in.
Yeah. Do you think it's ever too late to leave?
No.
No.
But I think if you stay longer, it's going to be harder to acclimate after you leave. I think if you can leave earlier in your life, maybe even halfway, you still have time to live. But let's say somebody who wakes up in their 70s, bless their heart.
There's no retirement savings. There's no secular career. There's no nothing. Again, that belief system is designed for you to think of paradise.
Yes. If I didn't have somebody when I was working for a Fortune 500 company tell me, you need 401, you need to get a 401k account. And I was like,
when you were still in the organization.
Yes.
They were encouraging you to
They were encouraging me to do that. Yes. And I did it because at first I was like, I don't need that. What do I need that for? I needed that.
So looking back at it now, what would you tell your younger Debbie?
Everything is going to be all right. Everything is going to be okay. You are going to get through this. You will be just fine. And it's going to end up perfectly. Yeah, because I was suicidal at one point. And I was going to do it. I was going to do it. And this little voice on my, because we talked about my spirit friends, they show up. This little voice on my right ear said, if you do this, you won't know. And I remember turning in the direction of where I heard the voice. And I said, I won't know what. I wouldn't know this today if I'd taken my life. And it was hard. There were some hard days. but I wanted something else. I just knew that I wanted to be happy, and I felt happiness. There's a day I woke up and it was like, I'm happy. And I just kept building on that. But I had to let go of all the things in my life that was kind of keeping me restrained. I had to trust, dig into my courage, and to go, I can't do that anymore in order to achieve this. The level of peace, the level of joy, level of freedom, flexibility, flow in my life. I could have not had any of that. I don't think I would be here if I had stayed in the organization. Definitely don't think I would be here now. So it is real.
Ooh.
If you want to feel peace, if you want to feel joy, if you want to feel happiness, you can, because we are all powerful beings capable of creating with our minds. Anything we want to experience, we're creating all the time. But you can get to a space where you specifically create what you want to experience in this amazing world. And it's infinite. It doesn't end. It is eternity. And for all the people who are waiting on paradise, I think of my family and my friends and organizations still, they're waiting on paradise. I have seen paradise. It is here. And my goal in life is to keep my mind constantly open enough so I can see it again, because I have seen it and it is magnificent.
Wow.
It's magnificent.
It's just been great having you, and I always learn so much from you every time we talk. So I just want to thank you again. You're wonderful.
One thing,
Yes.
because I think it's really important that I say this to you. Okay. And we're keeping this in.
Okay.
I'm grateful for you for showing up as you show up, Aubrey, because the first time I saw this girl, sorry, you're a young lady. The first time I saw Aubrey, I was like, oh, this is a TED talker. Like, okay. So I'm just grateful that I got to sit with you, because I know there's going to be a day when I open up TED Talk and see you out there and say, I remember when I first saw her, and I'm not surprised.
Oh.
So I'm not. I'm going to say that. And I will say, I hope that more former witnesses who, people that have had our experience, ease into the spaces that you're creating, because it is time for us to move past talking about the pain.
I love that. Yeah.
It's time to start talking about, what do we want to create?
Ooh.
How do we want to show up? So I just want to say to you, thank you for showing up as you are. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. That was so heartwarming. Incredible.
Comes from the heart, girl.
I felt that. Felt that energy just come off the screen.
I love you. You're amazing.
I love you too. This is great, and you're making me tear on my YouTube channel.
Let it go. Cry.
I'm such a crybaby. No, but I really appreciate you, and wonderful time that the first time I met you, it was just glowing and magnetic. And I think I went after you. I think I went after you. So I was when we gave our speeches at the conference, I think I went after you, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this lady is like really powerful.
And I was all over the place that day, girl.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Debbie, thank you so much. I love you.
Pleasure, my love. Thanks.
So always remember, my friends, to own your story, own your power, and live your truth.